Welcome into your Weather Impact Extended Weekend Forecast here on 13 WMAZ Plus. We're going to be going over the forecast for your weekend ahead, any event-specific forecasts that we do have, and of course we'll be taking a look at what's in store for Turkey Week next week as we approach Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and the weekend after. First things first, we like to start off with the rainfall graphic, and I am once again coming on this stream and starting it off with telling you we have not received rain in the month of November. It has just been a steady decline from near normal into the dry category, the very dry category, and now we're flirting with the exceptionally dry category. So obviously your grand total is a big fat goose egg for the month so far. An average on November, we don't really receive too much rain. It's less than 3 inches, 2 3/4 of an inch of rain. So obviously we still have a chance at maybe hitting that average mark if we are to get a widespread rainmaker. That does send us some pretty substantial rainfall totals, but that may have to come at the cost of receiving something in the form of some storms, which I know we obviously don't want in the forecast, but we've been so dry recently, that's a welcome trade-off that we will take. One stormy day in order to improve those rainfall totals and those drought conditions, which we'll talk about in a moment. Your record stands just over 10 inches of rain for November all time. That happened somewhere about 33 years ago in 1992. So obviously we're not even going to get close to that number. If we were to get 10 inches of rainfall over the last 10 days of the month of November, then that would be quite the weather phenomenon for sure. So the year of 2025 as a whole, September, October, and November, the past 3 months all have those red boxes indicating it's been a very dry stretch of weather since we had a well above average August in terms of rainfall. We recorded somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 inches of rain in the month of August, and that put our year departure where we should be at this point in the calendar year as a whole, well above average, nearly 7 inches above. And obviously that number has just continued to go down and down and down. Right now we are hovering at a ½ inch of rain above average for the entire year of 2025. These numbers are of this past Thursday, but we are definitely going to need some rain to bump that number a little bit back farther above average and of course round out the calendar year of 2025 above average as well. But we did get an update to our drought monitor this past Thursday, and it did confirm what I was thinking. We did see some of those drought conditions worsen over the state of Georgia. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Number one, as of November 18th, so this past Tuesday, and then we get the release each and every Thursday. Right up in northeast Georgia, even portions of northwest Georgia, they've actually gotten their fair share of rain over recent weeks, so they're not in any form of dry conditions or drought conditions whatsoever. But it's the exact opposite down in south and southwest Georgia. Take a look at how big this area of an extreme drought is, and within that extreme drought, this is the first time I've seen this in quite some time, an exceptional drought. That does exist right on the state line of Georgia going into northern Florida. So it always could be worse, but here in central Georgia, we have seen those areas of severe drought expand for many of our west and southwestern counties, now encompassing all of Upson County, Taylor County, Macon County, Dooley County, and down to Chris and Wilcox counties. But you can see it stretches across our southeastern counties, somewhere right there around the southern portion of Dodge County, Telfair, Wheeler, Lawrence, over to Montgomery and Treutlen counties. And then over here to the west, really close to the Macon area, really close to the Warner Robins area. But it does look like our more populated cities, Dublin, Milledgeville, Macon, Warner Robins, and of course going down into Perry. That is where we see a moderate drought still existing. So those areas not quite as bad as that darker shade, that orange shade that you do see. But make sure that you are continuing to go outside maybe once or twice a day, water those potted plants, water that backyard garden, and make sure that you're doing it in the morning time frame, early in the morning, and during the evening hours, so you are limiting the hours of evaporation that can occur. Because if you have that immediate evaporation on a crystal clear sunny day, then obviously that water isn't going to soak in and really hydrate those plants. And things like grass, just continue to run the sprinklers like normal. I would set the timers on those sprinklers, which a lot of sprinkler systems do have nowadays, during that early morning time frame and in the evening time frame in order to give your lawn some much needed hydration. So now going into future view, do we have anything in the way of rain in store? Well, this is a promising image already at the 5 o'clock hour as we go into Friday. We could start to see the entrance of some scattered showers, mainly of the light shower variety, but I do believe most of the rain starts to move in as we go into the nighttime hours on Friday. We will have a pretty warm afternoon on Friday as we do get decent gaps in the cloud cover. That will lead to some very warm numbers. In fact, we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But we can see this cluster of showers continuing to move over towards the east, 9 p.m. on Friday, and then it's really just of the form of some spotty showers. Not everyone is going to receive rain from this rainmaker, courtesy of an approaching frontal boundary, but it does look like at least a decent shot of rain compared to those minuscule sprinkle chances you probably heard me talking about last Wednesday and this past Thursday. But then we transition into Saturday morning, and the overcast skies still remain in the picture, along with those isolated rain chances, still mainly in the form of light showers. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility of maybe hearing a couple rumbles of thunder. Like I said, that's the welcome trade-off that we would take in a select few areas. Heavier rainfall amounts are associated with some of those thunderstorms. It's not going to be anything in the way of severe weather, but it just may be a bit loud and a bit messy outside for a brief time period. And then we transition into the rest of your Saturday, where conditions steadily improve. A bit of a breeze building in, but still some rain chances in the near vicinity of us as we go into that early afternoon time frame. I do expect all the rain chances to leave by the time we roll into the hours past sunset going into Saturday. Then our frontal boundary will pass through later Saturday into early Sunday, and that's going to dry our forecast out for the back half of your weekend, specifically really just that last day of the weekend. Sunday is looking to be the best of the bunch if you want to get some outdoor plans in. But even at that, Friday and Saturday, yes, they both do have rain chances. I would still go ahead and keep all of those outdoor plans. This rain is going to be very hit or miss, meaning you have a good likelihood of not seeing rain whatsoever over the entire course of the weekend. Your rain chances are going to be pretty low for both Friday and Saturday. But I did mention a bit of a breeze building in as we go into Saturday afternoon. Let's go ahead and flash forward to that, where we could see some occasional gusts getting up to 20, maybe even 22 or 25 miles per hour. It's not the windiest day we've seen over recent weeks, but it is going to be worth noting. Saturday is going to be on the windier side if you have any outdoor plans, and something that the wind could possibly impact, like maybe climbing up on the ladder, putting up some Christmas lights, or playing some backyard football. May just want to kind of counteract that wind, throw that spiral a little bit over to the left if you are planning on winning some of those early Turkey Bowl games, getting in the holiday spirit. Now we go into Sunday, 2 p.m. Just a steady breeze coming out of the north, maybe the northeast, and it's going to be about 10 miles per hour. Not really worth noting. I doubt you're really going to notice the winds whatsoever as we go into your Sunday afternoon. But in terms of the humidity, this is why I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility of maybe seeing an isolated thunderstorm in a select few areas, because we've had a decent amount of moisture over the last couple of days, and that continues to be the case as we roll into Saturday. This is Saturday really early in the morning, but we don't necessarily see any of these patchy areas of dark green. That's where you would have a more sufficient environment and more moisture to support the development of some more active weather in the form of heavier rain and some thunderstorms. We don't see that cross over central Georgia. It just looks like we keep the light green shaded areas in the picture until that front finally moves through, and it looks like the dry air finally takes over as we transition into Sunday afternoon, and maybe a bit of humidity in a select few areas as we go into Monday. So it's not a very strong front that is going to push through. It's not going to really result in substantially drier air and substantially cooler temperatures, but it will, on a smaller scale, do that same thing that most frontal boundaries do as they pass through. We'll have the cooler air and the drier air for the back half of the weekend. And this is what I mean by not everyone going to receive some rain. It really looks like confidence farther to the south and the southeast is not really that high whatsoever. We can see some spotty areas of that green shade, but even at that, these green shaded areas only totaling about 1/10 of an inch of rain. So consider yourself lucky if you do get some. And like I always say with those drought monitors, any little bit of rain that we can get will definitely help. But if you don't get any rain whatsoever, then those drought conditions just will continue to worsen. But I do have some good news for you. This is just your weekend forecast. As we transition into next week, we do have another widespread rainmaker on the way. And right now the timing is looking like it's going to be before Thanksgiving, and the rainfall totals are looking a bit more impressive with this next rainmaker. So here's a look at your weekend outlook. 81 for a high temperature both Friday and into Saturday. Rain chances starting to pop up Friday night at about 20% and continuing to keep that 20% chance of rain on Saturday. I didn't throw the thunderstorm icon on there. You may hear a rumble of thunder or two, but I do believe most areas are really not even going to see anything in the way of some heavy rain or some thunderstorms, let alone even rain at that. So I elected to keep the thunderstorm icon off. 61 for a morning low temperature on Saturday. We've had our fair share of warm mornings in the back half of the work week this past week. This comes after we had a pretty good cold spell. We actually started out Tuesday morning this past week at freezing temperatures. So we've seen an increase in your morning low temperatures of nearly 30 degrees if we record 61 for a morning low on Saturday. And this comes in light of the increase in moisture that we continue to have. But we'll also keep the clouds present Friday night into Saturday. So that's also going to contribute to some warmer numbers. After we get through an afternoon that will be on the warmer side at 81 as we go into around 2, 3, and 4 o'clock on Saturday, we will cool down a little bit more. 51 as you walk outside on Sunday. Like I said, not a very substantial cool down by any means, but then your afternoon high temperatures do get a little bit closer to average. They're still above average of 67 degrees this time of year, but 75, mostly sunny skies, that's going to be a great forecast to wrap up the weekend. And remember, Saturday going to be a bit of a breezy afternoon if you're trying to fit in some plans later in the afternoon when those rain chances completely go away. But we have been making a run at the records, and we will do so once again Friday and into Saturday. Your record high for Friday afternoon, exactly what I have forecasted of 81 degrees. We did hit that mark most recently back in 2011. So hasn't been necessarily too long since we've seen the low 80s at this point of the calendar year. We have to go back about 14 years for the last time we did that. But your record high on Saturday afternoon, 80 degrees, and that was most recently set back in 1942. I have a forecasted high, of 81 degrees. So it does look like we have a good likelihood at least matching or going slightly above those records both Friday and Saturday. And this comes directly after 2 days in a row where we did break a record or match the record. We broke a record this past Wednesday. 83 degrees was the record high temperature. There's that year again. 1942 was the last time we did that. We hit 84 up here in the Macon area. And on Thursday, I didn't really have too much confidence in breaking this record or at least even matching it because it looked like the foggy skies we had this past Thursday were going to continue to linger. We weren't going to get that period of a substantial warm up as we went into the afternoon. But we really got some mostly clear skies for Thursday afternoon, and it did allow us to match the record of 81 set back in 1991. So that's 2 days in a row already with some record warmth here in central Georgia, and we're extending that 2-day period and we're doubling it by 4 days. And quite the temperature swing, quite the 180 from what we were talking about last week, where we did break a record low temperature when we had that weather impact alert for that first fall freeze. But now let's get into some of the event-specific forecasts. Football Friday night. I think it should still be mostly sunny, maybe even into partly cloudy around tailgate time. How about this temperature? 77 degrees. That is pretty warm, especially when you compare it to the football Friday nights of the last couple of weeks. And of course, not too many games going on, but it is the second round of the state playoffs for Georgia high school football. So we have some teams playing in central Georgia. We have some teams that are playing a little bit farther to the north. I know for one, the Houston County Bears, my alumni, of course, they are traveling up to Rome to play. So the rain chances this afternoon into the evening are a bit better than what they have been, say down here in central Georgia for your Friday forecast. But temperatures are going to steadily decline as we go into kickoff time. Possible rain around kickoff and around final score. We will have those rain chances still hanging around in the picture. Temperatures feeling a bit more pleasant as you actually get into the start of those football games later on Friday evening. But all in all, just pack the rain jacket in case you need it. There's still a good likelihood that you don't need the rain jacket whatsoever. So Mercer football, they are out of town this weekend, but it's actually not too far of a trip. Traveling over to the Plains to square off against Auburn. So yes, you've seen it everywhere. Everyone's calling this week SEC Cupcake Week. Well, Auburn, I don't think they had a 9-1 Mercer team in mind when they did schedule this game originally. Auburn not having the best year, and we know crazy things happen at Jordan-Hare Stadium, so maybe the Mercer Bears can pull off the upset. If you are making that 2-hour trip over to the west, number one, it's going to be a 1-hour trip because you will gain an hour back passing over into the central time zone. But tailgate time, probably around 11 a.m., a possible sprinkles still because that frontal boundary hasn't made its passage through. So I do expect some mostly cloudy skies, but still a temperature of 70 degrees already at 11 a.m. 2 p.m. is going to be the kickoff, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that kickoff will be on 1 p.m. Central time. 77 degrees, a pretty warm afternoon, conditions steadily clearing out. And then as you get into final score, and hopefully we're bringing you our sports section or our sports segment later on Saturday evening. And we're talking about a Mercer Bears big upset win, Temperatures should be right around 74 degrees as you approach sunset, but actually sunset is going to be pretty early over there. 4:37 p.m. for a sunset. That absolutely seems criminal, but it does make sense. Alabama, eastern Alabama is going to be right there on the very eastern edge of the central time zone. So the sunset is going to be earliest in that section of the central time zone. And it's going to be nearly an hour earlier than us because you do go back an hour. But also take a trip up 441. The Georgia Bulldogs, after a big top 10 win up in Athens last weekend against the Texas Longhorns, they have a bit of a get healthy game and get prepared for Georgia Tech, which will be happening next Friday on Black Friday. They are squaring off against the UNC Charlotte 49ers. They've had a very rough go at it this season, but hopefully the Dogs are going to have a wonderful game and put up a lot of points. Everyone's going to stay healthy, and we are going to go into that Georgia Tech game very prepared. Tailgate time around 10 a.m. because the kickoff is going to be pretty early. It was a night game last week against Texas. It's nearly a 1 p.m. kickoff this Saturday afternoon. A very similar forecast to what you do have over in Auburn. Possible shower earlier in the day, but steadily clearing out. Temperatures somewhere in the upper 70s for highs, maybe even flirting with the 80-degree mark up in Athens. But by the time you're heading home around 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, sunset is going to be just after that at 5:26 p.m. 75 for a temperature and mostly sunny weather to close out hopefully another Dogs win and getting to 10-1 on the season, I do believe. I know we have 9 or 10 wins, somewhere in that neighborhood. But also the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They are in town in Atlanta, back out on the flats. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets will be taking on Pittsburgh, who has been a team that many teams, I just need to stop talking about college football. We'll just stick to the weather. Georgia Tech is having a night game up there in Atlanta at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Kickoff, we will see temperatures begin to cool down into the 60s. I think it's going to be a pleasant atmosphere. And like I was talking about, that frontal boundary is going to continue to push through during the afternoon to evening hours. So farther up to the north and the northwest, we are going to see conditions clear out a little bit quicker. Mid-70s right around 4 p.m. and temperatures dropping into the 60s as you go about that night game up there. So now, putting up the Christmas lights. We did refer to it a little bit earlier. I do have a yellow light icon on Friday and Saturday just because a few showers could still be lingering a little bit later into the afternoon in a select few spots. Just have a bit of caution, and along with those winds. Don't forget that if you are climbing up on the ladder and getting on top of the house. But Sunday is going to be the best day to put up those lights as we wrap up the weekend. I do have a green light on the very last day of the weekend. But your grillcast looks a little bit different than this. I have a yellow spatula for Friday evening just because we could see those showers try to move in a little bit earlier. But once again, just have some caution. It's a very good chance that you don't see anything in the way of rain. Saturday and Sunday evenings, I think the rain is already out of the picture. You're looking good to go. Go ahead and fire up the grill and maybe go ahead and get a kickstart and a head start on some of that Thanksgiving cooking that you will have to do throughout the week next week. So my recommended attire, I'm not saying wear the rain jacket Friday night and into the first half of your Saturday. Just keep it handy and ready to go in case you need it. And then the rest of the weekend, I do believe, is going to be t-shirt and shorts weather, and along with some sunglasses. We'll have plenty of peaks of sunshine. And I just talked to you about how those temperatures are approaching records as we go into the first 2 days of the weekend, but finally cooling back down a little bit closer to normal for Sunday. We continue with the dry stretch of weather into Monday next week, and then as we transition into Tuesday, it looks like our next weather maker is on the way. It looks like it may even make an entrance as we go into the back half of Tuesday. Well, the European model in blue here seems to think that a couple showers could lead ahead of that actual line of showers and maybe even some storms and start to creep into central Georgia. So I do have some rain chances surrounding the later hours on Tuesday, but I really think it's going to be Wednesday. That's going to be a messy day, and of course, it's a big travel day for many folks. Many folks hitting the road on that day before Thanksgiving so you can get up to your destination and have all day for Thanksgiving cooking, celebrations, watching the parade, watching some good NFL football. But it does look like most of Wednesday is when we are going to start to see this frontal boundary actually creep in. So it's going to have a quick motion when it starts way back over to the west, but as it creeps closer and closer, it is going to stall for a brief period, and then it's going to eventually push through. Perfect timing right here. Thursday, 8 a.m., right as we go into the morning hours on Thanksgiving. Still holding on to a bit of cloud cover, but that continues to steadily clear out as we go into the afternoon. So Thanksgiving is looking like it's going to be a dry forecast, and Turkey Bowl forecast, like I was alluding to earlier, it is going to be a very conducive environment for that. And finally, some appropriate feeling temperatures, which we'll get to in just a moment, for your Thanksgiving weather. It's been feeling like late summer here as of recently, so we'll finally knock the numbers back down after the passage of this midweek rainmaker next week. Then we transition into Black Friday. It looks like the dry trend is going to continue. In fact, I think the dry trend does continue for the entire weekend after Thanksgiving. So let's take a look at some of the rainfall amounts. Here's the GFS, what you just saw in the green shade. And this is looking kind of promising. It looks like everyone will receive some rain, but also we are going to see maybe not as much of rainfall totals or higher rainfall totals farther to the south and the southeast. Farther up to the north and the northwest, you do look like you have the better likelihood of seeing something in the form of more impressive rainfall totals, but still only about a ½ inch of rain in some of the cities that I picked apart. Let's take it over to the European model, which has a bit of better resolution. And you can see after we go through those 2 rounds of rain, still rainfall totals at only a couple tenths of an inch. But say if we were to get lucky like Columbus over here, we have the potential for maybe up to about an inch or 2 of rain. Hopefully we can continue to hold on to a little bit of moisture. This is a widespread rainmaker sometime Tuesday into Wednesday next week, and then we'll get our fill of rain and dry out for everything that you do have for holiday celebrations next Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday and Sunday. So your morning low temperatures, we go back down closer to average, 44 as we walk out the door on Monday morning, but then those numbers rebound as we get the increase in cloud cover, increase in moisture Tuesday into Wednesday, and then we drop the numbers back down closer to average as we walk out the door on Thanksgiving morning. It's going to be a more substantial cool down than what we're seeing, say, Sunday into Monday after the passage of our frontal boundary this weekend. However, it is still going to be slightly above average and definitely not really in the neighborhood of that big cool down we did see as of the early last week. Afternoon high temperatures finally dip back into the 60s, 63 degrees for a high temperature on Thursday for Thanksgiving itself. Like I was saying, I think it's going to finally be some more appropriate feeling weather for what it should be during the late November time frame here in Central Georgia. But your early Thanksgiving forecast, I just took a snapshot of both the long-range models, the European and the GFS, and you can see that all that rain is off the east coast of the United States according to both models. European doesn't even have that rain holding together over the Atlantic as that front continues over to the east. Highs in the mid-60s and lows in the mid-40s, but we could see those numbers dip even lower as we get closer. But that's the general thinking right now. You're not going to have to worry about rain, say, after that beginning of the holiday forecast, sometime around Tuesday into Wednesday, or when those rain chances will be present. So your temperature outlook, we'll go into the day after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday, all the way into December 4th. We are almost in the month of December, folks. That is so hard to believe. Near normal right here in northern Georgia, but right here we are one category over to the right. So we have a slight probability of seeing above normal temperatures as we go into those last couple of days of the month of November and the first couple of days of the month of December. Now what this means is your numbers are still going to be cool, maybe somewhere in the mid-60s, the upper 60s, and your morning low temperature is going to be somewhere in the 40s still. So it is feeling more seasonably appropriate for this time of year, but obviously those numbers are just above the averages this time of year. So these shades of red, shades of yellow are not going to necessarily correlate to some numbers, say, around 80 degrees or 90 degrees as we go into this time of year. So don't get fooled by just what you associate with these colors. So it does look like your numbers are still going to be a whole lot cooler in this extended forecast time frame than what we have been over this past week. And we are very likely are going to see another frontal boundary pass through sometime after Thanksgiving, after that post-Thanksgiving weekend, and hopefully those below normal categories start to creep farther and farther down to the southeast as we go day by day, and this forecast goes out into the beginning of December more so. And your precipitation outlook looks like we're going to hang around near normal levels of precipitation. So not too much in the way of rain. It would be really nice if we could see, say, some darker green shades on this, because we obviously need the rain when I just showed you that drought monitor. But like I said, we'll take whatever Mother Nature does have to give. So Thanksgiving going to be 6 days away. Actually, everything that we're looking ahead to is going to be within the next 2 weeks. Thanksgiving next Thursday, Black Friday just a week away next Friday, of course. And I want to know from you guys, do you guys still get out and camp out for Black Friday sales, or does everyone do that online now? Because I feel like that's what I do. And after COVID, it feels like everything just kind of shifted to online shopping and not really camping out for all those early Christmas deals and sales. Then 2 days after Black Friday, that will be the following Sunday after Thanksgiving. It will be an important date here for the weather team. That is going to mark the end of hurricane season, November 30th. Then you won't hear us talking about tropics until we get sometime into next May next year. And then one day after that, of course, what comes after November 30th? And no, it's not November 31st. It is actually going to be December 1st. That is 10 days away until we start the last month of the calendar year. And pretty soon we'll be talking about how many days away we are from the official start of winter, which I do believe is coming up here in about 30 days or so. December 21st is going to be that first day of the winter season. So speaking of the end of hurricane season, is there any buzzer beater activity down there in the tropics? No, there is absolutely nothing down in the Atlantic. It is not, or we have not seen anything over the course of really the past month. It's been since Hurricane Melissa since we were talking about anything tropics. But I told you guys I'm going to continue to keep you informed. We don't need to worry about anything in the Atlantic Basin, and especially if some social media meteorologist goes out there posting that we have a potential area of development, don't go believing it. I do believe our totals are going to stand at these numbers that we currently have as of November 20th, really going all the way back into late October. 13 named storms that we've seen, so that falls 1 storm below average and 4 below what was forecasted for us this year. 5 named hurricanes, which is 2 storms below average and 4 storms once again below what was forecasted. But of those 5 hurricanes, we did see 4 of them reach major hurricane status, Category 3 or higher, and then 3 of those 4 storms were Category 5 status. Most recently, Hurricane Melissa, which was the only one that impacted any land when it had that Category 5 strength. And 4, that puts us 1 above average and matches what was forecasted by Colorado State. So in terms of very strong hurricanes, we definitely hit our averages, but in terms of just general named storms, we just didn't quite see the frequency of tropical activity that we normally do see in a calendar year. So that's going to do it for your extended forecast. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have a safe weekend. Make sure that you're gearing up for that shortened work week, that shortened school week, or maybe not even going to school whatsoever as we transition into Thanksgiving next week. I hope you have a happy holidays. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that that front on Tuesday into next Wednesday does give us some much needed rain, and then we can dry out and get some much better feeling weather as we roll into Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and eventually the month of December. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at Monday on at 11 a.m. on Monday.